All right, welcome. This is our explainer on Module 4, Span of Control. We're going to break everything down to get you fully prepared for your exams.
So, here's our game plan. We'll start with the basics, look at how it shapes companies, figure out what affects it, and then we'll jump into some practice questions before a final summary. Let's get started.
Okay, first things first, let's get right into the core concept and define what span of control actually is.
At its heart, the principle of span of control is all about trying to answer this one simple question. What's the magic number?
So, here's the official definition. But the key word you really need to focus on is effectively. It's not just about how many people a manager can have reporting to them. It's about the optimal number they can manage well. If the number gets too high, the quality of supervision just falls apart.
I think this bridge analogy is the perfect way to remember this concept. If the pillars supporting a bridge are too far apart, that's like a wide span, the bridge gets weak and might collapse. But if the pillars are too close together, a narrow span, the bridge is strong, but you've spent way too much time and money building extra pillars you didn't need. It's all about finding that perfect balance.
Okay, now let's see how this concept actually shapes the structure of an entire company. This is a big one for exams.
This slide shows it all. It's a direct relationship. If managers have only a few people reporting to them, a narrow span, you need lots of managers. This creates many layers, which we call a tall structure. On the flip side, if managers have lots of people reporting to them, a wide span, you need fewer managers, which creates a flat structure.
Okay, MCQ alert. You absolutely need to know the pros and cons here. Tall structures give you more control, but man, they are slow and expensive. Information has to travel up and down all those layers. Flat structures are much faster and give employees more freedom, but your managers can get seriously overworked.
So, this leads to the next logical question, right? How do you decide if a span should be wide or narrow? Well, it turns out several key factors come into play.
First, it's all about the people involved. And notice, it's not just the manager's ability. Sure, a more experienced manager can handle more people, but what if their team is full of trainees? Even the best manager would need a narrower span in that situation. And don't forget time. If a manager's schedule is packed with meetings and reports, they simply have less time to supervise people.
Next up is the work itself. And here's another big MCQ alert. This is a classic exam trap. People often get this backwards. Simple, routine work, like on an assembly line, allows for a wider span. One supervisor can watch many people doing the same task. But complex, creative, or constantly changing work, that requires a narrower span so the manager can provide more guidance.
Now you might be thinking this all sounds a bit subjective. Well, a French management consultant named V.A. Gracchiunas actually tried to quantify why the span of control has to be limited. He identified 3 different types of relationships that a manager has to deal with. There's the direct one-on-one with each subordinate. Then you have the cross relationships between the subordinates themselves, and finally, the relationships between the manager and various groups of subordinates.
Now don't worry, you do not need to memorize these formulas for your exam. The only thing you need to take away from this is the key idea. Every time you add one new person to the team, the number of potential relationships and interactions that the manager has to handle shoots up exponentially. It gets complicated really, really fast. Okay, enough theory. Let's see how well you can apply what we've learned with some exam-style multiple-choice questions. I'll show you the question, we'll pause, and then we will analyze the answer together.
All right, read this one carefully. The keywords to focus on are highly skilled, experienced, and autonomy. Think about how those factors connect to the span of control.
The correct answer is B, a wider span of control. This makes perfect sense, right? If your employees are skilled and can work on their own, they don't need constant supervision. That frees up the manager to oversee more people.
Now, understanding why the other answers are wrong is crucial for MCQs. A wider span creates a flatter structure, so A is out. Giving autonomy is the exact opposite of micromanagement, so C is wrong. And empowerment means more delegation, not less, so D is also incorrect.
Okay, on to the next one. This time, notice you have 2 factors to consider. The work is complex, and the employees are physically distant from each other. What does that combination point to?
And the answer is B, a narrow span. Complex work requires more hands-on guidance from a manager, and it's much harder to supervise people effectively when they're in different cities. Both of these factors strongly push you toward a narrow span of control.
Let's quickly analyze why the others are wrong. A wide span here would probably lead to chaos. Option C gets it backwards. A narrow span leads to a tall structure. And D, decentralized. While it's a related management concept, it's not the direct answer to a question about the span of control.
Great job on those questions. We've covered a lot of ground. So let's wrap up with a quick summary of the most important, high-yield facts you need to know for your exam.
This slide is basically your cheat sheet. If you're cramming for the exam, make sure you know everything on this list. Understand the definition. Know that narrow equals tall and wide equals flat. Be able to list the factors for each. And remember the main point from Gracchunas: complexity grows exponentially. So I'll leave you with a final thought to apply what you've learned. Think about how the ideal span of control would look in two very different jobs: a manager at a creative ad agency versus a supervisor on a factory floor. All the factors we discussed would come into play. Okay, that concludes our explainer on span of control. Good luck with your exam preparation.